My name is Blaine, Trooper Blaine Backen, like she said. I've been with the state police for a little over 5 years. Before that, I was in the Army for 8 years. I ran some restaurants, open restaurants in Texas and Georgia. I have a daughter. She's a little over 18 months old. So fortunately, social media hasn't been a huge issue with us yet, but I actually have seen kind of some problems related to this already. I showed her some videos on YouTube one day. We were like playing on the computer, and then she wants the computer all the time. So for some reason, seeing a video on the computer is much better than if she watches it on Netflix or something like that. So we've already kind of started to implement some stuff to make sure that that doesn't become more of an issue for her. You don't have to hold it all the time.
Maybe.
Is anybody, how old are your kids? Do you have kids?
Yeah, we have kids.
How?
25 to 11. Then we have
11, she's 14.
14, excuse me. Then we
It's
have
close.
yeah. Then we have foster kids of different ages too, but usually
Okay.
younger.
How about you guys?
22 to 7,
Okay.
and fosters.
Okay.
My kids are grown, but I am the child care services director for the YMCA.
Okay.
So I have
And how
lots
are
of
you?
ages.
My grandson's turning 6 right now, my granddaughter's 9 months.
Okay. Does anybody have any particular problems with social media, or you're just here to kind of learn about pitfalls?
Well, I think there's always something going on that you don't realize, right? And that's our kids, they have phones, so phones go in a different room when they go to bed.
Okay.
But,
I think that scariest thing is what was just recently on that all the kids were talking about was that scary face that told the kids to do
You're talking
something.
about Momo.
Yeah.
We'll discuss Momo. So I'm going to give you a bunch of ideas on different things. A lot of it for me is best for somebody with a very young child like what I have, because if it's implemented from the start, then it's much easier to manage her as she becomes more involved in social media, what we're allowing her to get into. When you have, it sounded like a daughter that's 14?
yeah, right?
So, she could probably teach this class much better than what I could. She probably knows more about most social media platforms than I ever used, because I'm kind of old, I guess, and I'm not really big into social media. This isn't necessarily my area of expertise. I just happen to teach a lot of classes on some other things, and Trooper Summerhays retired. There's a new trooper that's taking over this position, but he recently had a baby, so he was gone, and so kind of I got asked to do it. So I learn about social media stuff a lot when it comes up for criminal investigations. And so when I'm dealing with students or young people or even sometimes adults that are involved in something, I will go download an app or I research it, I use it myself so that I understand how it works. And that way as the investigation progresses, I can work on that. I apologize, I thought I took my phone off. So social media, I put the definition up here. Essentially, most people think of Facebook or a few apps, but there is hundreds and hundreds of different platforms that would be considered social media. YouTube is considered social media because you're putting out ideas. It's creating a community where people can get on there and share different experiences or comment on different things. So some stuff that we discussed you might not have thought about as classically being social media, but it is spots where your children or people are receiving influence from different stuff. And we're going to discuss some of the hazards and harmful stuff to social media. We're going to focus on that really, but there's a lot of positives to social media as well. You know, there's things that we can do nowadays to unite people together for positive causes as well that weren't easy to do in the past without these. So I don't want anyone to go out of here terrified thinking, I'm never allowing any family member to use any social media platform. It's a big part of it, and I'll probably come back to it several times, as an adult, is talking to your kids and understanding what they're doing. And if you are saying to yourself, man, my kid is so smart with that phone, she can do 1,000 things and I don't understand them, you need to talk to her more. You should be able to understand what they're doing, who they're talking to, why they have the app, you know, what is it that they like about that particular app? How are they meeting people on it? There's no reason that any person on social media really needs 3,000 friends. They don't know 3,000 people. They're not communicating with them. They don't need to see that personal information. They don't really need to share things with themselves with 3,000 random people. So by talking with your family and your kids and getting into it and saying, hey, you don't know 2,983 of these people, let's get rid of them. They might not be good influences anyhow, so let's really control what your social media is that we're going to go through. Obviously, the class also is a discussion. If you guys have questions anytime, we'll go over things at the end, but feel free to just work something out.
Well, I wanted to say that 2 Sundays ago in the Grand Rapids Press, there was, I don't know, midway through the press, was an article actually, it was talking about social media, and it had a lot of like Snapchat and Instagram and, you know, other things. There was like a secret calculator for pictures.
Talk about that?
Yeah, and it was like, you should warn your children, you know, basically, or talk about these,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So I laid that out for the parents because it was really good.
And kids don't realize a lot of what the hazards are.
Right.
Actually, a lot of adults don't realize the hazards, and we're going to discuss later that it's one particular issue that men run into, adult men frequently, that comes up fairly frequently, and it's social media is the cause. But we'll get into that stuff later. I want to get out of order. So one of the things I did when I was prepping for this class is I just Googled what are the best social media apps. And in the first article that popped up said 60 social media apps that you have to have this year.
Oh my goodness.
Could anybody in here even name 10, let alone 60? And why I would need to use 60 different apps? But there's everything from sharing photographs to chatting and discussing with people, sharing your location. There's an app called Periscope, which seems particularly creepy to me, which allows people to view you, but you don't know who's viewing it. So you open up a camera on your computer, so you know a 15-year-old girl sitting in her room doing her homework, and she makes her eligible to be Periscope. Any person who wants to watch her can, but she doesn't know who's watching. So there's all kinds of different stuff out there, and then those people actually can send messages to her too and say whatever they want with anonymity. These are probably some of the most common. Facebook, I'm assuming everybody in here knows what Facebook is. Snapchat, is everybody familiar with that?
I've heard of it.
Snapchat is one we're going to discuss a little bit because it causes quite a few issues for law enforcement. Essentially, the Snapchat platform allows you to send pictures, video, and text messaging or dialogue to either an individual user or a group of users. So, for example, right now, if I wanted my Snapchat followers to know what I was doing, I could send a little video and say, hey, feeling cute, teaching class tonight, send out this message, and I could send it to everybody, or I could send it to just you. After you view the video, it's gone. You don't get to look at it again. So where the issue runs in for law enforcement is that a lot of predators or people that want to keep stuff concealed know that if you send a message to her that you don't want me to be able to see, and now she comes and tells me about it, I'm never going to be able to get it. I can't do a search warrant to Snapchat and get records of what was sent. So I recently had a criminal case involving a 13-year-old victim that's a minor with an adult male, and he would only communicate through Snapchat because he knew that if police became involved, none of their conversation or anything that had occurred would be available. Another problem that comes up with Snapchat is that everybody knows how to take a screenshot on their phone. Okay. If I was going to send somebody an explicit picture thinking that sending it through Snapchat means that it won't be saved, and now that person receives it and screenshots it, they would have this picture that I sent out that I didn't want to be out there. Snapchat now has updated their program so it will indicate if somebody screenshots what you sent, but that doesn't mean that the picture is not there. So it'll tell you, hey, they just saved that picture, but it's still out there. Make sense? YouTube, most people should be fairly familiar with YouTube. allows you to upload videos on whatever you want. There is some parental controls. There is some stuff on there that does, this video is only intended for people over the age of 18. But the age verification really is pretty simple. You're creating an email address, identifying yourself as being over the age of 18. It's not like you're showing an ID or anything else. So any kid that's savvy at all can create an email address that they're going to use to get into some protected stuff on YouTube. There's not supposed to be any pornographic material or anything on there, but there is some that's somewhat risky, and obviously there's a lot of influence from people that they follow. So if, what's your name?
Mike.
Mike. So if Mike creates a YouTube channel where he wants to go out in his backyard and do crazy stunts or something that he's going to upload to YouTube to get views, and a person starts following that and deciding they're going to try and do the same stunts that you are, or an increasingly riskier stunt or something because they want to start their own YouTube channel. They're getting ideas from you. Or if they create somebody else's videos, they can start to watch that stuff. So there's a lot of people out there that might be influencing your kids or family members in ways that you just don't want to. So even with something as innocuous, I suppose, as YouTube, you still should be monitoring what they watch. If they have a profile, because you can create a profile, so every time you log on, it's going to be recommending videos to you. I use YouTube a lot for like how-to videos on different stuff. So if I get on there and Google how to do drywall, the next day it'll start showing me related videos to that. So you should be asking your kid, who do you like to follow, or what kind of videos are you watching on there, or just check in once in a while. The WhatsApp is really popular, and I learned about this one recently while prepping for this class. It allows people basically just to have discussions, but they post questions on it, and they can ask a group of people what they think that they should do. Where the hazard comes in is that general strangers don't always have your best interests in mind, and a lot of kids don't understand that. So if they post something like, I tripped in the cafeteria today and spilled my food everywhere and I look like an idiot, what should I do? They're going to get responses where somebody's going to be like, oh, your life's over, you should kill yourself.
Yeah.
And so it obviously creates negative personal self-image. They've got all these people saying bad things about them. It's putting those ideas in their head. And really the people that they're talking to don't care what they're doing.
Right.
So, if they have questions like that, they should have hopefully a peer group or family group or church group or something that they can go to if they're really seeking advice on something. Tumblr. Tumblr's photo sharing stuff. So it's not one I deal with typically for a criminal matter. It's something I wouldn't necessarily address in class, but it comes up a lot. Probably the worst thing on there is some negative self-image stuff, in particular maybe for younger girls, because as we're going to discuss later, any photo that I want to put out, I can filter it nowadays. I can put a lot of control on what I'm going to look like in these pictures that I put onto my Tumblr page. So when somebody else is viewing me, they think that person's very attractive, or they're skinny, or they're very muscular, or whatever it is. So their own self-image view is lower because they're comparing how they truly look to how somebody is manipulating their photos to look. There is, Instagram is next, but Instagram, there is men and women who make a lot of money as Instagram models. So essentially they're taking pictures of themselves, posting them on there, they're getting more followers, and as they reach 100,000, 200,000 followers, advertisers are paying them money then because their ads are going out because 200,000 people are watching every time they make an Instagram post. So they want you to wear their brand of shoes or their clothing, and they're willing to pay money for that. There was a Twitter, the next one. Is everybody familiar with Twitter before I make this comment?
Yeah.
Twitter is another platform where you share text dialogue. So it's limited to characters, like 320 characters or something. And you can tweet an idea or how you're feeling or what's going on or funny stuff. And so you just send out a little message. Well, one of the Kardashian sisters was paid $100,000 for a single tweet about Fire Festival, which was a big scam that was going on. But they paid her $100,000 to basically state that she was excited about Fire Festival because she has so many followers that would see that tweet that they would go and look into Fire Festival and spend their money on it, and then they lost a lot of money involved in what the scam was. So when somebody's on Instagram and you see some of these models, and the models talk about the fact that they'll starve themselves sometimes to try and be skinnier for what a photo looks like, that they're dehydrating themselves so they can be more attractive, that if there's some sort of augmentation surgery or how they're manipulating clothing or something to give them these looks, that shading and photography stuff, there's a lot of work that goes into it. So where they want to look like, oh, hey, I'm at the gym, and they just take a little selfie, really that selfie's got 6 hours of prep that went into it. And when young boys and girls are seeing these things and comparing themselves to that person, it creates a negative body image.
It also, I think, makes people think that everybody's supposed to look that way too. So it's not even just negative to you, it's negative to your wife or something like that.
Correct.
too. So.
Google Plus is a Google dashboard essentially that allows you to track places that you go on Google, your location analytics, searches and things that you do. It's not, I don't have any specific hazards for Google Plus. It's kind of a grouping of all social media stuff.
And I think they're going away with it. I got some message, I mean, that's.
Well, it has like 350 million users on a daily basis. Skype is video and chat stuff. Pinterest and LinkedIn. LinkedIn is primarily a social network for like job applications and job links. So actually when I was running restaurants, I could put my resume on there. I kept that stuff updated. Other people could see it. So sometimes headhunters and things go through there. I don't have any pitfalls, and that's not really popular with younger people. Any questions on any specific apps or anything? Okay. Hazards of social media. So some of these are more specific to certain types of apps. Some can fall into just kind of a generality, so we're going to go through each one. And you guys really, the PowerPoint doesn't mean much to you, like I said before. It's just so that I don't forget everything as I talk a lot. It helps me stay on topic. So stranger danger for me is that you can be anybody you want online. I can represent myself as being a 12-year-old boy or a 12-year-old girl, an adult, a grandparent. I can copy anyone's personal interest and views. If I look at your Facebook page and see the sorts of things that you like, and now I want to manipulate you in another way, I know that I should say that I like dogs also, and I like cats, or I like President Trump, or I hate President Trump, or whatever it is, I can start working towards those things. And with Facebook, everyone's goal, or a lot of young people's goal, is to have as many friends as possible. The more friends that you have on Facebook, that must mean the better you are. And when you see a celebrity that's got 100,000 friends or 1 million friends, so that's important. And some people do become wealthy by being famous through social media, and I think that just like anything else, young people think that they're going to be good enough on social media, they could become wealthy from it as well. So they're willing to accept anybody who wants to be their friend. I will tell you that I have a Facebook page that is my criminal Facebook page, and I'm friends with a whole lot of criminal people because they want friends. So when the guy who's definitely not a cop says, I want to be your friend, and I follow him on Facebook, they accept it. And then once I become their friend, I can see locations where they're at, drug use, what kind of cars they're driving, who they're in relationships with. When they tell me that they're going out to a certain bar tonight and I've been trying to pick them up on warrants, I know where I need to go. I was on a traffic stop with a female driver that was being uncooperative, and she had 3 more passengers in the car. They wouldn't tell me who they were. There was some other stuff going on, so I went to her Facebook page. She had posted that she was going to Gun Lake Casino for a little bit. Did anyone want to go with her? She had 3 responses, and then I was able to find those 3 people and identify them. They warrant someone to jail. And it's all through Facebook because
People are not very smart when they do that, right?
there's a lot of information available out
But
there.
how many guys or troopers could have done what you did?
Anybody has the capability of doing it.
Right.
I mean, it's just thinking about it and working through that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So sometimes, you know, when somebody makes you angry and you start thinking, social media is available. Oversharing of information. A lot of young people, they don't understand what they shouldn't be sharing or why it's important that they don't put stuff out there. The easiest thing that I think about with something like this is that when a whole family is saying, we're going on vacation next week, we're going to Florida, or you start putting all these pictures out, hey, we're gone for spring break, and your daughter has 400 friends who can view that. Their 400 friends each have 400 friends, so it just branches out. Now, when I'm shopping for a house to break into, I know that your place is going to be available during the day and in the evening. You know, you put on there that the dogs are getting boarded, so I know you don't have a house sitter, or personal information that's available. For example, I was trying to find somebody that Doper had given me a name of someone, but I didn't know what that person's birthday was. I was trying to look them up. I found her on Facebook. Her information was secretive enough to where it wouldn't show me certain things, but I could see her wall. So then I just started scrolling through the wall until eventually I got to a spot where there was a whole bunch of people telling her happy birthday on December 21st. So I get a birth date out of it. Even with some controls on social media, there's too much information there. And then somebody who's savvy and wants to get something from you can go through and pick all these things apart. They can find, how many of you have your mother's maiden name is involved somewhere in a bank account or Social Security or something else where a default password is what's your mother's maiden name? Well, my mother is currently not married, and she uses her maiden name on Facebook. And so in my relationships, if you went to relationships, mother, and there's her name. So now somebody has my name, my date of birth, my address, my mother's maiden name, and they want to call the bank and pretend to be me. They have a lot of information towards applying for a credit card, a loan, or something else, and all of that stuff is available just because they're a friend of a friend on Facebook. When I first started Facebook, I kind of was like everybody else, which I wanted to get friends. So some person from high school, friends me, oh yeah, I remember that guy. I didn't really like him that much in high school, and now it's 10 years later. Why do I want to talk to him now? I don't. So why do I need to accept him? And so what I've done since then is I've gotten rid of a whole lot of people. If I'm never going to see this person in life and talk to them, or I don't have any connection, or I wouldn't call them up on the phone, I don't need to see them on Facebook. And your security settings on Facebook should be adjusted so that stuff is private. It should be visible to your friends. That's it. Not friends of friends. If I'm friends with Susan and Susan's friends with her, well, if I wanted to be friends with her, I would share my information to her directly. I don't need it to get that way all the way around. Info hidden in photos. Specifically, location data is hidden in a photo. It is, when I take a picture with my iPhone, there is called, I think it's EXGIF information that's stored inside of it. I'm not a particularly technologically savvy person, so somebody who's probably a little bit more skilled than me can take a photo that you've posted on Facebook and know exactly where it was taken. If you had some person that was trying to find you, find a family member, was stalking your daughter or something like that, they could look at that data and now they can find your house because she took a selfie in her bedroom. Or at school, or she goes out to the same group every evening on Wednesday nights and she posts that, and now somebody knows that every Wednesday night she goes to this church because that's where the picture was taken. Staying power of social media. This is really big for younger people of all ages. You put something on Facebook, you put something out on social media, there is a good chance that 5 years from now, I can find it. You go in for a job interview, and somebody at that job interview is going to say, have you ever done anything illegal, or have you ever done this? You ever used any drugs? No, I never used any drugs like that. Okay, that's funny, because in 2016, here's a picture of you where you said that you're smoking a joint, and it looks like you're smoking weed right here. Okay, that stuff is out there, and we find it all the time. People put all kinds of dumb stuff on Facebook. They post things where they badmouth their employers or their boss, and not realizing that of their 500 friends, one of them is their boss, or one of them is the boss's wife, or their boss's daughter. And now he sees the message and it gets back. My sister works at a hospital, and she's quite a bit younger than me. She posted something one day that definitely should not have been put on Facebook. And so I called her and said, you need to do that. That's the kind of thing that you're going to lose your job about. You can't post even a somewhat anonymous comment about a person, a client that came into the hospital today. You know, and you live in a small town. It could easily get back to them and find out that the receptionist at the hospital put something nasty up about them when they came in. Cyberbullying. Obviously, it is much easier for me or anyone to talk trash. Hopefully everybody understands that term. To talk trash or be rude to somebody with the anonymity of the internet with me. I don't have to look them in the face and call them a name or tell them I'm going to whoop them or whatever else. I can have the computer in between us. You also have what appears to be a group. It's easier to look like there's a mass of people picking on one person. You can't escape cyberbullying like you can bullying at school either. So if I'm being bullied at school, it's unfortunate, but at least it's a Monday through Friday, and it goes on for class time, and now I get to go home at the end of the day, and I'm separated from it, and on the weekends I'm separated. Your kids nowadays are never separated from social media. It's there, 24 hours a day. They have their phone on them, they have access to the internet, they have home computers, they go to school, they see this stuff, so it's always there. If you're being bullied and somebody is making you feel horrible about yourself, or a group of people are, and that's the last thing you see before you go to bed every night, and the first thing you see when you wake up in the morning because they grab their phone to check to see what's going on, you can see where it can lead to a lot more towards depression, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, suicide in some cases. So for parents, and I get off track sometimes, but we're going to go into some control measure stuff, so I'll get into some more ideas for controls later on. But, for parents, it's important that you enforce having your kids separated from social media, from technology once in a while. You know, at dinner time, putting phones away. And the same needs to be true for parents. Your kids are going to do what you're going to do. So if you've got your phone sitting there because work might call and that's really important, your kid's going to say, well, Jimmy might call, and that's really important to me, so why don't I get that? You know, and then too, getting rid of your stuff, you're going to focus on your kids, you'll have those conversations, and you may learn some things about other stuff that's going on through this that could be important. The information concealed from law enforcement, like I was discussing with Snapchat, there is lots of things that the purpose is to disguise information. Some of it is specifically for the purpose of avoiding law enforcement or detection by somebody else. Some is just the application and how they're created and the fact that they're trying to keep... No company really wants to be known as the one that shares information with police, so they all tend to be fairly difficult. But things like Facebook, it's fairly easy for me to get all of that information. Right now, if I believe that there's something criminal going on through Facebook, I can log on. I do what's called a preservation request, and that means if I do a preservation request on Mike's Facebook page, it'll mean that he can't delete anything. He could, it'll appear to you that you're deleting it, but really it'll be getting stored somewhere. And then when I do a search warrant on whatever it is, Facebook would give me everything. I would have all the messages, the stuff that's been shared, whatever post you've made, so I can get all that stuff. Some other apps, things like Snapchat in particular, doesn't work. It's never going to be there. There's no such thing as a Snapchat search warrant. I guess probably the best information I could get would be username and maybe the email that was used to create it, or any other information to create the account, but I'm never going to get anything that was shared through it. Driving distraction, obviously, social media has addictive properties, which we're going to discuss, and with kids and adults, they're on their phone all the time. They're learning to drive. You got a 14-year-old, and now, 2 years from now, she's out there driving around, and she's hearing that tone in the car, that somebody's messaging, or somebody liked something, or she just got tagged in something on Facebook, and she wants to look at it. It's a problem. We see it a lot. I was working in the evening one night, I think I was doing OWI overtime. I was on 131 southbound. I saw a vehicle in front of me that was driving erratically, but it didn't really look like they were drunk. It's kind of a different type of, you can almost tell the difference between texting and drunk driving. So I was watching her for a minute, and typically if I think that it's somebody is distracted in some way, I'll pull up next to him so I can see him. Well, when I pulled up next to her, she was on video chat, and she was holding her phone up like this, and she was videoing with someone, talking to them, while she's trying to drive. And the person in the video could see me next to her and was pointing at me and telling her the cops. And then she looked and she pulled over on her own. I didn't even have to do it. She just pulled.
Oh. Yikes.
The things that they'll do while they're driving is ridiculous. And it's kids, because they're getting addicted to this stuff, they're using it too much, and going 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour without using their phone or looking at it is too long. There is, I didn't write it down, but I know if you're traveling at 70 miles an hour, I think a second of your eyes being off the road for a second, the distance that you travel is significant. And in that brief time to reach down and grab your phone, look at it, and come back up to the road, if traffic is stopped in front of you, you don't have time to respond. If somebody's walked out in traffic, if there's a deer on the roadway now, whatever it is, a lot of crashes are being caused by simple distractions just like that. There is, I don't think I added it later, so we'll talk about it now, but I know that some of the new phones, if you're traveling in a vehicle, it knows that. And it'll say, it looks like you're driving right now, and it will turn off all notifications.
I was gonna say, isn't there something there should be something out there, or make it so your phone doesn't even work?
There is, the problem is,
You have to tell it to do it or something before you.
and there's an option that says, I'm a passenger.
Right.
So, if a kid, it says, oh, I'm a passenger, I'm gonna drive anyway. So some of this stuff, when we get to settings later, going to your phone provider is the best way to have this discussion with them sometimes. If you can set up a parental lock that, passenger or not, when they're in a car, this thing isn't going to work. It might be a route to go if you have a child that you feel like you're having that issue with. Momo, who she brought up earlier. I'm going to show you guys a picture of Momo. Does anybody know who Momo is or not? Okay.
Yeah, we saw the school sent out like 10 minutes around.
Yeah.
It was on the school computers, you know,
Yeah.
I understand.
Wow.
It's on the internet though, I mean, so kind of scary looking.
She's creepy looking.
Yeah.
Momo originally was something that was created by a Japanese artist. And it is a distorted looking woman's head on top of a chicken's body that has breasts. The primary images you see is a woman's face that looks like this.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
So,
Did you need?
yeah, I'm sure it's not on myself for one class.
I'm used to it, so.
What came up with Momo, and really, as far as we can tell, it's kind of an urban legend. It's a hoax. There is a real Momo. It was a statue that was created. There's pictures of it. Then somebody started a viral message that said that Momo videos were embedded into children's videos on YouTube and on the internet. And what was happening is that a kid, a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, is watching YouTube videos of Daniel Tiger or Wheels on the Bus Go Round or whatever it is, and that picture would pop up, accompanied by a voice, and she would give them a challenge. And the challenge was something fairly basic at first, but after they completed it, they were supposed to send a text message to a phone number letting them know that they were done. And then eventually these videos would progress to harder and harder challenges. And the final one was that Momo instructed them they were supposed to get a knife or a razor blade and how to cut their wrist to kill themselves. There hasn't been any real proof that she ever was in any videos. After the hoax came out and after it became news media and stuff, somebody did make a video like that, and another cop had sent it to me. Facebook flagged it and it got blocked right away, otherwise I would share it. It was creepy, but there was never any proof that any child had ever seen Momo or killed himself because of this or anything else. There is, however, there's lots of challenges, so some are fine, some are bad.
Tide Pod challenge.
Tide Pods.
Yeah.
So there was the ice bucket challenge for MLS, where people dumping water on themselves. There was planking for a while, which was, some people did die doing plank because they're planking at some stupid location, which planking is holding yourself like a plank, but they would do it on like the edge of the deck, on the railing of the deck. Or then somebody went and did it on a bridge and fell off a bridge somewhere, or on the edge of a building and fell off a building. There was another challenge that I don't know if it was legitimate or not, called the Blue Whale, and it came up over time where they were supposed to use a razor blade and make cuts on their arm that eventually was going to look like a whale, but the last cut was a very long cut that was vertical and potentially could cause the kids to kill themselves. So there's some images online. I don't know if that's accurate or if anybody was really doing that or not.
But it's pretty sad, though, that it gets to that point, and then these youth think, instead of saying, wait, why would, to warn others, they're like eating it up, and they would want to be so destructive.
That's the effect of social media also.
Yeah.
That people are viewing social media thinking that everybody else is doing these things. So, I guess when I was a kid, if somebody claimed that they were drunk on a weekend, they're full of it. They're probably just saying that they were doing those things. Well, now, kids are looking at a video, and the guy's chugging a bottle of vodka on the weekend, or tequila, or whatever it is, and they believe these things are really going on. And they're like, man, everybody's at that party drinking, everybody's doing these things, that stuff's really occurring. So one of the stats, I think it's coming up, says that 75% of kids said that they were more likely now to abuse alcohol or drugs or go through other stuff because of social media, because of what they're seeing everyone else do. And with the increasingly destructive behavior, if one person is doing this Blue Whale challenge and it's getting them 100,000 views or 50,000 or however many it makes for a kid to think that that's worth it, and they're trying to one-up that guy, I'm going to do something bigger and better. I'm going to do something more impressive so I can get some more views and more people like my stuff or share my tweet or whatever it is. Hidden applications. So one of the reasons I say it's important that you're talking to your kids, discussing things, understanding what they're using on their phone and things, stuff like that. Obviously at different ages, you're going to allow them to have a different amount of how autonomous they are with their phone. I wanted to say autonomous. I don't know what I was trying to think. At least to begin with, I wouldn't allow my child to download an app or anything else onto the phone without me okaying. The hidden application, there's a couple specifically that look like calculators. One is called KaiCalc and the other one is CalcCX or something like that. And it's actually a calculator, and when you open it up, it functions as a calculator. But if you type in a security code on it, it goes to a hidden folder on your phone. And so it allows them to store either images, conversations, videos, other apps inside of it. So if you pick your kid's phone up and you're looking at it and you're saying, what's this calculator app? Oh, I just needed for math at school. They let you use your phone at school? Well, yeah, for math they do. Okay, well, every iPhone has a calculator app already on it. So why did you download another one? And then if you look at the name and go Google it, and it tells you it's got a hidden file on it, then you're going to have to speak to your kid because it's got a passcode. So you're not going to be able to just open it up and know that that's the hidden file. You're going to have to go through something else. At forum where somebody is talking about a specific video game or something that they like. By definition, anytime a group of people are coming together and are sharing ideas, it's some sort of social media. So if your son or daughter or friend is involved in online gaming and there's a particular website they like to go to and there's a forum and they have other gamers on there talking, then some of the issues that we're going to discuss could come up in that spot also. Obviously, when people have the anonymity of the internet behind them, they will say things and do things online that they might not do in person and try and influence other people in negative ways. It's not always their best interest they're looking for in a lot of these cases. So just keep in mind that I'm going to hit some kind of the high points, but you could have similar issues regardless of where your loved one is at online. Does anyone want me to read this out loud, or can everybody see it? So these are probably the most common social media platforms. Some of them we're going to go into more in depth, specifically on where the risks fall with these. Facebook is obviously probably the number one. I would expect everybody in here knows what Facebook is. Snapchat. Snapchat is one that is definitely a common issue for law enforcement. Snapchat is essentially a platform that allows you to take pictures, text, video, and share them between a single person or a group of people. So if I have my Snapchat profile set up and everyone in here is my friend, I could make a quick selfie or a video of myself teaching this class, and then I could share it with everyone, or I could share it with individual people. That video would only be available for you to watch once or twice. Some of them you can replay. It depends on how the settings are, and then it's gone. You wouldn't be able to save it onto your platform, onto your phone, and I can save it on mine, but you as the person receiving it would not be able to. The exception to that would be that if I sent a photograph out, you could screenshot it on your phone. And again, if I use any terms that somebody doesn't know, just raise your hand. So, for example, if you send me a photo that you wanted me to see once but not be able to save long term, and I looked at it and I screenshot it on my phone, I would now be saving that. So where we run into issues with this is that some people are sharing pornographic material on there thinking that the receiver would not be able to share that or hold on to it. If they're able to screenshot it then, they still have that and they can keep it long term. Snapchat has updated, so now at least when you're sharing a photograph like that, if the receiver screenshots it, Snapchat sends you a notice back letting you know that that was done. It doesn't really change anything. The person still has it. The primary issue that we have with Snapchat is that none of the media, nothing that's being shared on there, is stored. So a criminal who knows this and is trying to prey on a child tends to want to bring them into the Snapchat platform and share information that way, because if a police officer starts to investigate a crime later on, we can't get the communications back from it. If I do a search warrant to Snapchat, they don't have a log or a record of that information. Recently, I was investigating a case involving an adult male with a juvenile minor, and there was a sexual assault that had occurred. And he would only communicate with the minor through Snapchat. So I was never able to get any of their communications that way. He was smart enough to know that. There is some text messages that they had shared, and in his text messages he says, hey, I don't want to talk on here, let's go to Snapchat. It's a fine program, and if I had a child that was using that, the strictest thing I would be about is who their friends are. And then I would be educating them on knowing that that something they put out on there could be saved by somebody on the other end. Social media in general, a lot of younger people, their goal is to generate as many friends or shares or likes as possible. It's a social status to have 1,000 Snapchat followers versus having 10. But the fact is that I don't have 1,000 people I want to share stuff with. So if you're monitoring somebody, a particular kid, you should be able to go through their friends list and say, who are these 10 people? They should know them in the real world. It should probably be family members or direct friends at school, and not a friend of a friend or some other person that just solicited them on there. There's no way for you to verify who a friend is online. So if I want to represent myself as being another 10-year-old kid from a neighboring school, contact a young girl or something online and ask that we share photographs that are inappropriate. There's no way for her to really know who I am. So if you can't look at your friends list and know exactly who these people are in real life and be able to name them, you probably shouldn't be friends with them. YouTube, most people should be familiar with it. It is an online video sharing platform. So you can watch a lot of different videos on there. You can make your own videos, upload them to it. It's considered social media, obviously, because you can express personal interest through your videos. There is chat platforms on there so you can discuss videos and things that you're seeing. There was recently a couple of large incidents that garnered a lot of attention. One of them was somebody called Momo. Has anybody heard of Momo? Okay. And then there was another one. It's called the Blue Whale Challenge, maybe, or something to do with a whale. I'll explain them both. So Momo is a character that's pretty creepy. It actually originated as a artwork a Japanese man made. It's a statue. It was made out of like a chicken's body and a woman's head, and it has kind of a disfigured face. A picture was shared from this artwork and went around, and eventually a story started that claimed this person, Momo. I just had her up. You can just pass her up. That's Momo. The claim was that in children's YouTube videos, this character was embedded, and that when your young child was watching videos, occasionally she would basically pop up in the video and she would talk to the kids and tell them that they had to do specific tasks. And these tasks, according to the hoax, continued to escalate to the point where eventually she instructed them on how to kill themselves. She told them to go get a knife and slit their wrists. It's a hoax. The videos actually weren't out there. The pictures got passed around, the media got passed around, but there isn't any actual documented cases where she was embedded into any videos or any kids did anything like that. The other one, which is a little bit more legitimate, was a challenge. Like we hear frequently water bucket challenge. Anybody remember that? And so that's fairly innocuous. Dump water on your head, raise money for a nonprofit organization. There's other challenges that have been done. One was planking, which is basically laying in the plank position in difficult locations to take a picture or a video of it. It resulted in some kids falling from elevated heights off the side of a building or something and killing or injuring themselves that way. The whale challenge involved using a razor blade and making short cuts on your forearm that progressed to eventually we're supposed to show the shape of a whale. But the last cut was a long vertical cut that would most likely cause significant harm or death to the child. I don't know that anybody actually, I don't know if anybody had done it or if anybody killed themselves using that, but that sort of thing is out there. So YouTube has parental controls on it. For the most part, the parental controls, though, are only on videos over the age of 18, which is pretty extreme. Some of these things, like the razor blade challenge, might not get flagged by that. So you should have a general idea of what your child or someone is watching if they're going to go onto this site. You'll also see that if you get on YouTube and you watch 20 videos, similar videos are going to get recommended for you to watch them. So what happens is they'll start to pop up at the top of the feed, and it'll say, you watch this, so you probably will like these. So I frequently watch like CrossFit videos. So when there's new CrossFit stuff or techniques, it pops up and it shows me. So as a parent, if my child was on there and was using YouTube, I may occasionally come and look, and that's going to tell a lot about what they've been watching. If they tell you that they've been watching deer hunting videos or how to on a building technique, but you get to that and it's actually some sort of adult material or something graphic or violent or gory that you don't want them watching, those videos are going to continue to get recommended. In general, while I'm thinking about it, everybody knows there's a history, a web browser history on your computer, right? Most people know how to get to it. If anybody doesn't, let me know. Okay. Anybody in here use a Mac? No Apple users, just me? Okay. Well, on the Mac, one of the things that Apple did is they installed, it's called an incognito mode. And so all you gotta do is go to the top where your Safari, my internet option is, click on internet, and it says open new window, open private window. If I click open private window, it doesn't record anything that I see in the history. Google Chrome's got it. I'm sure that PCs have some version of it. I'm just not sure what it is.
Almost all major browsers have it.
Yeah, I mean, and most of your kids are probably savvier than you, so they know that when they're doing something they're not supposed to be doing, they can turn it off. So, ways that I would know that they're turning it off would be one, again, what's your name?
Deb.
Deb? You're probably gonna be my kid all day long. So, if Deb is my daughter and she's in her room on the computer and I check in on her, hey, what are you doing? No, I'm just surfing the web. Okay. An hour later, I come back to check on you. Hey, what are you doing? Still looking at the internet. Okay. What are you looking at? I want to talk to you. Look at your computer. If I look in your history and you have no history, well, you're hiding something from me. Right. If your child's been on the internet for an hour and they don't have an hour's worth of history, then what's going on? If your child is sitting in the living room and you pull the history up at some point and you see that from 5 to 5:30 they were looking at homework related something, then there's a 30-minute gap, and now at 6 o'clock they're back onto something else because you're sitting next to them again. Well, there's a good chance they either tried to clear the history for that time period or they were hiding their history from you. And you look, did you have something to say? Oh. I thought you might have a tip or something for me on how he's fixing something. But well, that's good. When I say something wrong, you can correct me. So just some things to think about. You know, obviously talking to your kids, but kids are smart. They're going to start learning how to conceal some of this stuff. So it depends on how much trust you have with your child too. A lot of things, I trust my kid long enough or give them enough rope to hang themselves, but once they've proven to me if I can't trust them, this would be an easy way for me to look right at it. If not, I can always go back later on. Your history goes back, I don't know, a month or more than a month. So I don't have to be sitting next to him to check it. If I know that Deb's been on my computer for 2 hours, tomorrow when she's at school, I jump on, pull the history up, I can see what she's been doing. Or if I see a large time gap, I'm going to start to wonder what's going on there.
Can you lock that history up so it can never be eliminated or hid?
Prevent it from being deleted?
Yeah.
Not that I know of. But what would happen is you can't clear, as far as I know, you can't clear a small space in time in your history. So if you've got a month of history on your computer because you've never cleared it, and all of a sudden it's gone, well, you got to wonder why they're clearing the history. Something disappeared. There's a reason they wanted to get rid of it, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, typically if you went to my computer, I mean, if you pulled the history up on this computer, it's going to go back as far as it can go. You'll see everything that I've looked at on my state police computer. There shouldn't be any issues. So if a supervisor, I suppose, came tomorrow and wondered why I cleared the history out on the computer, it would be weird.
So it is possible to delete each individual page from the history.
Okay.
So that you can go, if you were on for an hour and then you went through the history, you could delete each individual link that was long.
And you would have a gap in time then.
Yeah.
You could minimize your gap, I suppose, if you looked at a valid page and went to an inappropriate page for 5 minutes and then went back to something else, it would be a smaller time gap, but it'd be more difficult to do. And, you know, most kids think that parents are idiots anyway, and we don't understand stuff. WhatsApp is one that I was not familiar with, and is actually pretty popular, has over 1 billion users. And essentially, the best I understand it is that you can go on there and you ask for questions or advice and people will give you responses. One of the reasons that this has become an issue is because obviously the people of the internet always have your best interest in mind. And so if a at-risk 13-year-old girl who's feeling down on herself gets onto the WhatsApp and says, I dropped my tray in the cafeteria today and I feel like an idiot and everybody laughed at me, what should I do? She very likely may get responses that tell her she should kill herself, she should do something else, and then that leads to increased negative personal image, other issues. So if they're having depression or something else, they're getting bullied, they're having problems, now they can get it done online as well. If it's something that I felt like was a problem and my child was using that a lot, I would definitely talk to them and find out why, if they need advice on certain topics, why they find that the best people to do it is some random stranger on the internet versus family, friends, church group, someone at school, something else. And just look for a better outlet rather than just posting your problems online. Yep.
I could be wrong, but I think your definition is more similar. I think there's one called like Whisper or like TikTok or something. WhatsApp is like a texting and calling online software. It's really popular in India and other countries that don't have strong cellular things. Like when my in-laws go on a missions trip to Central America, that's how we communicate is through WhatsApp because they don't have cell service there.
Okay.
I could be wrong about the Whisper thing, but or maybe there's something I don't know.
No, I mean, I'm wrong about stuff on a daily basis for sure.
I'm not trying to embarrass
No,
you, I just
no, and
have
there's-
personal experience with WhatsApp a little bit.
There's hundreds of sites that are very similar, you know, Whisper, TikTok, you're naming all these different things.
Yeah.
And a lot of them have kind of the same basic idea. So even, I'm probably wrong, she's most likely more correct than me. The idea behind WhatsApp, or the one that I just explained, is definitely prevalent on the internet. There is a lot of other communication apps as well, which we're going to talk about later, in that my phone, typically if I call somebody, I'm using minutes or I'm using a cellular plan. A lot of the apps would allow you to make phone calls, text messages, exchange pictures and video, but it's going to be done through Wi-Fi. So if you give a child a smartphone without a cellular plan, thinking that they're not going to be able to use a lot of this stuff, you're incorrect. They're still going to be able to do pretty much everything. And the other thing to think about on that topic is that Wi-Fi is available. Yes. So you think I've got the Wi-Fi shut off at home, they're not going to be able to use it, but when we go to church, there's probably a Wi-Fi signal here. If not, McDonald's has got one, all the coffee shops have one, my neighbor's house might have an unsecured Wi-Fi that I can link into, or a savvy kid walks over to the neighbors and says, hey Deb, our internet's down and I got to get my homework done. What's the password to your internet? And then you give it to me, and so now I'm logged into yours for my bedroom upstairs, and so my mom thinks I can't get online, but really I'm using yours.
You don't have your home phone number, your Wi-Fi password. I think a lot of times it's on that, it's set that way. We had to change that for my grandma because her neighbor was giving her issues.
Yeah, typically my password is always the default, whatever's on the router. If you have internet, the nice thing, because it's usually something strange. It's like
You
two
don't need-
words.
You don't need a password to get on the internet any place, do you?
She's talking about your home internet. So
Yeah.
some Wi-Fis are public, so there would be no password. Your Wi-Fi at home should be secure. It means it should have a lock. So if I came over to your house, I shouldn't be able to access your wireless internet without a password. Okay? If it's not, it's something that you should consider. One of the possibilities is that someone who is interested in looking at child sexually abusive material, child porn, could use your internet to download it. They could park their car outside of your residence, log into your Wi-Fi if you have no secured network, and then download whatever they want. If somebody was to come back later and do a search warrant, we would show an IP address, which would locate it back towards your residence. We'd have to try and figure out why somebody's getting on your Wi-Fi. We had a case in the past where there was a guy who was doing basically exactly that. Found unsecured internet, but when you go to, yes,
I was going to just say, I know some people like to change their password every month or so that people just can't keep using the same password.
yeah, and if you're giving the password out, or like restaurants and things will change, hotels update it, stuff like that changes. But also a lot of times with those, you log in through a restricted page that's going to limit more of what you can do. You're not going to be restricted on your home internet.
I think you can probably set it up that way though.
I suppose if you wanted to restrict your own home internet, I would prefer just to put a password on it and then I have to deal with that.
I just know the school, their guest Wi-Fi is restricted.
Yeah,
So you can't get onto any website.
yeah. The same thing would apply with most hotels and restaurants, things like that too, a lot of times. But that's why you need to lock your home. Tumblr, Instagram, we're looking at photo sharing platforms. Instagram is obviously extremely popular. Who in here uses it? I know some of you guys use Instagram, right? One of the biggest issues that I see from Instagram is that the pictures, it's easy to filter your picture, to modify and make things look better. So especially young girls are at risk when they're comparing themselves to Instagram models, stuff that they're seeing on here, thinking that these women are beautiful and this is how they look when they're at the gym working out. What they don't realize is that, one, the pictures have been edited or filtered, and two, the girls are putting a lot of time and effort into looking very good. They're not really at the gym working out. So it's just kind of some unhealthy body images. Twitter. Twitter is another basically online platform where you are limited on a number of characters that you can type in to post whatever you want, what you're doing, updates on movies, comments, life, whatever you want you can put on there. I don't have any specific issues with Twitter, but it's obviously a very common platform. With a very young child or younger kids, I would probably limit who they could follow on Twitter, some of the things that they can see. There was an adult film star recently who has a Twitter account that is pretty funny, but she puts very risque stuff on there. So I wouldn't necessarily want my kid looking at that sort of thing. Those people are always going to be out there and available. It's also important, I guess, to keep in mind that if your son or daughter who's very impressionable is following negative people on Twitter, they're going to get a lot of negativity into their life. If you're following the Kardashians all the time and comparing yourselves to them and seeing how they're running their life and basing your personal life off that, it's probably not going to be that great. But obviously we could follow Donald Trump on there too. You're not going to learn a lot on spelling. But, I would definitely be interested in who my kids are following on there and why.
Bullying.
Pardon me?
You can learn a lot about bullying.
You can learn a lot. Google Plus, not a program that I use. Google Plus is basically a dashboard that,
Google Plus was actually shut down toward the end of last year.
well, that's probably why I don't use it.
No one ever used it, that's why I shut it down.
Ironically, I had a complaint about Google Plus the other day because obviously when it was functioning, it monitored a lot of what you did on Google. So it kept track of your internet searches, things that you were looking for, things you wanted to store. So a wife called and stated that she had seen some history stuff that was saved in someone's account that indicated they were looking at something online they shouldn't be looking at. They're saying it's shut down. I haven't had any other specific cases or specific issues with it, so I don't really have anything to add. Skype, video calling, essentially, like we talked about before, you can call through Wi-Fi. So if you're trying to prevent your child from talking to somebody or using their phone, keep in mind that with a Wi-Fi connection, Skype, they could be sending out video and talking to somebody in that way. Pinterest and LinkedIn are just two large social media platforms. don't have specific issues with them. Probably Pinterest is geared towards a little bit older crowd. I like it, my wife likes it, you know, it shows you a lot of interesting things. I have not seen it to be particularly popular with young people. LinkedIn is primarily for employment, being able to put your job resume on there, look for jobs, seek other people, make connections through that. Again, I haven't had that one related to kids be much of an issue, or hasn't caused me any problems as far as law enforcement stuff is going. Yes?
You have to be careful on Pinterest though, because even though it's just the pictures, each picture represents a link. We had an issue at a youth group we served in Florida where one of my friends, her middle school daughter, had this board of, she just liked puppies, so she had this board of puppies and they accidentally clicked one and it opened up a pornographic website. So the picture that's associated with the link might not necessarily be like.
Yeah, it could take you
Does that
anywhere.
make sense? I'm
Yes,
describing
yes.
it really poorly,
No.
but that was.
No, and that's definitely something, I've never run into that issue or really considered it that way, but if I wanted, I guess if I wanted to trick people into going to someplace they shouldn't be, I could make a Pinterest that's oriented towards young children. If you were allowing your child to get on there and click on something, it could link them to someplace they're not supposed to be, or to someplace I want to bring them to.
People can be twisted or not supposed to.
Yeah, you're probably just teaching somebody something now. I'm gonna be dealing with it next week. Some of these things I hit on because I get sidetracked already, but hazards of social media. So these are some of the primary risks or issues that we see coming in as criminal complaints or complaints from parents. And most of these, this is just words that I remember still. Stranger danger, I touched on a little bit. You can be anybody you want online. It's easy to conceal your identity. Some of the websites do some age verification stuff or ask you to do something, but most of it's pretty easy to cheat. You can lie and say you were born whenever you want. You know, if you want to log into a website, a lot of times it just says, what's your birthday? And you pick a date and you log in. When you create an account, it used to be like when Facebook first came out, I think you had to have a college email address to create a Facebook. Now you're going to have an email address. So everyone has an email address. Your kids know how to create this stuff. So sometimes we'll talk to parents, you know, you should be able to link into your child's email and see what you want or know passwords. But your kid is also smart enough to know they can create as many email accounts as they want. So they can create a second email that they're using then to create a second Facebook page that you don't know about. One of the things that I suggest when looking at this stuff, especially starting with a young child who's kind of building into things, any applications that they're using, any programs they're using that have a username and password, I would expect that the username and password would be on probably a username and password sheet, and it would be on my refrigerator, or it'd be next to wherever the computer is at. And at any time that I wanted, if I felt I wanted to log into their account, I better be able to do it. If one day I went to jump on Facebook and log into their account to see what's going on, and they had changed their password or something else, they're trying to hide something from me for some reason, I'd be getting rid of that. Info hidden in photos. So you use your cell phone, you take a picture of something. There's data inside of the photo. Somebody who's more skilled than me can look at that. Most of the time it'll tell them geographically where the photo was taken at, what kind of device took it. So people who are smart, if they were looking for your child, they were looking for you, they're trying to find these things, something that your kid shares online could indicate where they're at or common trends. The staying power of social media, once you put something out there, it stays there. Somebody's got it saved. It's going to be available years from now. So your 13-year-old puts on that they're smoking weed or they're doing something dumb online. 10 years from now, when they decide they want to join the state police, I'll probably find that. And then there's going to be evidence of what they did when they were young and dumb. Along with that, we are running into constantly with young kids sharing nude photos of them. It happens on school computers. It happens on their cell phone. I mean, it is like a daily basis. The pictures are out there forever. And I know that when someone's 13 and 14 and 16, they think they're going to be in love with that person forever and they were never doing anything bad. Sad truth is, most of those guys or girls can use those photos vengefully down the road if they want. There is now a law also that regards revenge porn, which essentially is if I used a pornographic picture of someone and then I posted it maliciously for other people to see in an attempt to like retaliate against them, that can be criminally charged. Distribution of child sexually abusive material is also obviously criminal. Just because you're taking the photo of yourself does not mean that it is not criminal. The age of consent in Michigan is 16. So at 16 years old, a child, in my opinion, can decide that they want to have sex. However, they cannot take a picture of themselves naked until they're 18. So, you have a 16-year-old who's sexually active and is taking photos or videos of themselves and sharing that. They are creating and distributing child sexually abusive material, and it is possible for them to get charged for that sort of thing. I would hope that when my daughter reaches that age, I will be able to scare her enough that she will at least wait until she's 18 before she shares any pictures that she shouldn't be sharing. I've been married for 17 years. I still don't think that I would ever send a naked picture. I just wouldn't be confident enough that it's not going to get out at some point. I'd end up sending it to the wrong phone number or something. Cyberbullying. Obviously, we know that cyberbullying is an issue. And that, as I discussed before, being online, it's much easier to be mean. It's also easier to kind of have a group of people to gang up or target on one person. When you're on open chat forums, if I say something nasty about somebody, there's going to be 100 other people that want to jump on there and say nasty stuff too. The other thing that we see with this is that, you know, when I was a kid, if I was getting bullied at school, not that it's great, but at least I only have to deal with it Monday through Friday, and I get to go home at 3 o'clock, and I get to separate myself from that. Kids now are not separated from the internet or from cyberbullying ever. The last thing they do before they go to bed is probably look at some sort of social media. They're either on their phone, checking messages, they're looking at Facebook or Twitter or sending out something on Instagram, and the first thing a lot of people do in the morning is look at the same thing. My phone is my alarm, so when it goes off in the morning, I pick it up and it's showing me alerts and different stuff. If someone's being nasty to me, then that's the first thing I'll see in the morning and the last thing you see before you go to bed. It's definitely harder to be, it's easier to be bullied now. It's harder to get away from it and kind of give yourself some space. So it's stuff to be aware of. Information concealed from law enforcement. There is specific applications. Some are more difficult to deal with than others. Snapchat as an example. Facebook, it's not easy, but we can do a preservation request. So basically we can freeze stuff that's on a Facebook page without them knowing. Do a search warrant and get everything off of there and work with that stuff. But it's still difficult because you're dealing with a large company that's in a different state. Getting a search warrant, getting it to them, getting all that data back and going through it can be tough at times. And criminals are smart enough to know what platforms to use that they're not going to get caught or tracked on and what they shouldn't be using. There is also, I'll get into it later. Driving distractions. The phone, I use Facebook a lot. Likes on Facebook, posts, things coming up, alerts, somebody sending you a message, somebody liked your post, whatever it is. It's designed to give you a dopamine or a serotonin release, to be happy when you get something. You know, if you post something really good on Facebook today that you think lots of people are going to look at, 20 minutes later you're jumping on there to see how many people liked my post, or how many shared this, or how many are excited because I just said I got a new puppy, or I put this picture up there. Kids in particular are so in tune with their phone and attached to it all the time, that driving for 30 minutes to get from Hastings to school or wherever they're going, they can't put that phone down and be away from it. Maybe they're not sending a text message out, but they hear the chime or the chirp of an alert on something and they're picking it up and they're looking at it. And that time when they're not looking at the roadway and they're looking down to the right is when they're drifting off the road, they're causing crashes, they're hitting other people. There is some settings, some phones now, you can set it up so that when it believes it's in a car and it's traveling, it won't send text messages or bring incoming calls. It'll send out basically a response that says, I'm driving right now and I'm not available. The problem is that you can turn it off and you can tell that you're a passenger in a car. So just because your son or daughter is driving doesn't mean that they're going to adhere to that. And I think, again, you can only educate the kids, you can only go so far. So if you're going to give your child a smartphone and they're going to be driving a car, at some point it's going to be on them to put that phone down. You know, if you asked them to put it in a box in the trunk, you could. They might pull over a mile down the road and get it out of the trunk and have it in their hand while they're driving. You can ask them to turn it off while they're traveling, but ultimately the kid's going to have to make the right decision. We are seeing more and more crashes, fatal crashes, very significant stuff that's cell phone related. I think I was working drunk driving overtime one night, so it's fairly late. It's dark out. There was a vehicle in front of me that was having trouble staying in the lane. You can kind of tell the difference between a drunk driver and somebody who's texting. So as I was watching the driving, I thought, this isn't drunk, they're doing something else. And as I started to get up close, because what I'll do a lot of times is pull up right next to them so I can look at the driver and see what they're doing. And frequently they never see me. They're down like this on their phone, they're like this on their phone, and they won't see a cop car next to them. This girl was on a video chat. And so she had her phone up like this, and she's talking to a guy. And when I was next to the car, the guy could see me. So I could see him, he was pointing at me. She looked at me and then finally just pulled over on her own. But what are you thinking that having a video conversation while you're driving was a good plan? Like, talking on the phone is bad enough when you're young and not paying attention, let alone having a video conversation where that's what you're talking to. Momo, we hit on already. Hidden applications. There are certain apps that their specific purpose is to hide stuff on the phone. One of the easiest ones is called CyCalc or CyCalc. It's CY space CALC, like calculator. When you download it, it looks like a calculator application. It'll have a little calculator icon on the phone. When you open it up, it is a functioning calculator. You can do whatever you want with it. But when you enter in a specific numbered sequence, whatever passcode you set, then it opens up, and inside it's actually a data storage or a file storage. So I can store photographs in it, videos, other information. I can put a file inside of that I just don't want my parents to see. So if Deb grabs my phone and looks at it and says, what's this? Oh, that's my calculator. If you use it, it works as a calculator. Phones pretty much all come with a calculator on them nowadays. There's a standard Apple calculator on my phone. So if my child had an extra calculator, I'd probably ask him, why do you have a second calculator app? And then the name on it is going to be displayed. It says CyCalc. So you might just jump online and Google it if your child is being weird or suspicious about something. But a lot of the stuff comes back to talking to them, trying to understand what they're doing. If you think that your child is much smarter with their phone than what you are, that's where you're going to start running into a problem, is because they're going to be smarter and they're going to continue to outsmart you. You have to talk to them to try to get educated and look at what some of the stuff is. Peer influence on social media. Essentially, they found that peer pressure has increased drastically because of social media. The reason being is that when most of us were young and we were in school and somebody told me that they got drunk this weekend, or that they had this big raging party at their house, kind of like I still do, I think they're full of it. They're probably BSing or making stuff up. Well, now, with social media, most kids are seeing their peers do certain things because they're posting pictures of themselves getting drunk. They're posting videos of stuff. They're stating that they're going to have a party, and then they've got 100 responses of people that are interested in that. So this is increasing the influence on their other peers because they're saying, man, they really do have a big party that everybody wants to go to. There is 100 people there. Everybody does drink. I can see them all online drinking right now, so I should drink too. Deb is super popular. She got wasted this weekend and posted a photo, passed out, and it got 100 likes. And I just went for a run this weekend and put it on there, and only 5 people liked it. So if I want to be cool, I got to do what she does. It's much tougher to be a young person now than what it was when we were kids. It's pretty easy for me, I feel like. It wasn't that tough. So a lot of these things I discuss different cases and stuff that I have. So if anything ever bothers anybody, you don't want to hear stuff, let me know. But a case recently with a young child who their sexual knowledge was far advanced beyond what I would have known probably at 37 years old versus when I was this child's age. And the reason is because of how much stuff is available online and the people that they're talking to. There's so much thing, even in TV, you've seen the changes in TV. The Simpsons was risque when I was a kid, you know, to say one of Bart's catchphrases, and now you can watch Family Guy, and the stuff that's on Family Guy or South Park is outrageous. They can get online, watch the videos on YouTube, see their friends, the things that they're learning about, the stuff that they're discussing, and get into adult material or adult conversations or topics easily. And if you have one child in a class that's unsupervised and is doing these things at home and then is bringing it to school and talking about it, even though your kid is very good, they're still going to say, what was he talking about earlier? And they might type it into Google and research something, and it's going to bring them to these sites and they're going to see that stuff. Kids are curious. You got to be involved in what's going on. Yeah.
I have to say something. I'm a school bus driver, and there is all kinds of stuff that these kids are learning on a bus. I just suspended a little first or second grader talking to other little ones about butt raping. Where could they get that information from? You know?
Well, I'm sure that comment probably came up on Family Guy, which is a cartoon. And I've seen plenty of parents that say, my kid can watch a cartoon. They can watch whatever they want. Or, you know, it's a free world. If they want to watch that, they can watch that. Or they can get on YouTube and watch it. They can get on internet. They can search it. Or they hear their parents talking about something, and then they wonder what their dad is talking about, so they Google it.
They also have phones on the bus.
Yeah.
Right.
What?
And you have a on the bus, you know, you probably have, what, elementary school? So you got 5th grade through 1st grade?
I have all grades on mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got, you know, high schoolers in the back talking about something and think it's funny to get a 1st grader to say something inappropriate. You just convinced me. I guess I'll be driving my kid to school then, huh?
Needless to say, Mom was notified.
Well, yeah. It doesn't have to be a bus. I have childcare, and I hear it all. You know, you know, they get it from older brothers. Because the TV was on one day, and the one boy, he's what, 9. He said, "Is that Game of Thrones?" And I go, "How do you know about Game of Thrones? Past your bedtime, anyways." But he makes comments, and so I know he watches stuff at home. I can't control what you do at home, but here you have to shut your mouth. You can't say that stuff here. So it's not just that. It's everywhere they get it.
Talk about peer pressure.
Uh-huh.
It's almost to a point where it'd be child abuse to prevent your child from having a smartphone.
I disagree.
I do too.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I disagree.
I understand what you're saying. We're going to talk.
That would be World War III in
Oh,
mine.
no.
We're going to discuss that later on. We're going to go through some control measures and ideas. How old are the kids?
15 going on 21.
Oh,
Okay. So, and that's the age when we started, where I say it'd be most difficult to implement some of these changes. But I do have some ideas that could kind of help you with some things. You can't go back and fix anything at this point, but you can try and make some changes. Misperception on social media. Some of these things I've touched on. You know, when you're looking at social media stuff, nobody puts the bad stuff, the dregs of life, the normal me, I'm out mowing the lawn all the time. They put on vacation, they put on the new dogs, they put on when they're pregnant and when they're in love and when they get a new car. And you go through 100 pictures to choose which one is good enough to share, and my wife looks at all the pictures before deciding what I can post somewhere because she doesn't want a bad one. And so everyone is comparing themselves to the highlights of the life. They're looking at Deb and saying she's got it all. You know, she hangs out at the beach in the sun and drives a nice car, and everybody loves her. And I'm over here going to school all the time, and I got to shovel the driveway, and how much greater you are than me. So it leads to increased depression and other issues. Number of friends, social status. I don't know, I guess when I first got Facebook, I didn't really care how many friends I had, but I like my wife. You got 300 friends. I only have 30 friends. I gotta friend more people. But realistically, the fact is I don't care about those people because I didn't know them. I couldn't tell you where they live at now. Most of them, if I show you a picture of them, I don't know who that person is. I didn't want to really be friends with you in high school. Why do I want to be friends with you on Facebook now? So I have actually gone through and gotten rid of most of the stuff. If I haven't talked to this person in real life recently, I don't need them on Facebook. My child, they don't need some person from another school or some dude they met one time or a friend of a friend. You know, they should probably have family members on there, grandparents, they can see what's going on, they can have some cousins, see what's there, who's your close friends in school, teachers or a coach, somebody who's positive influence on them. But if you can't go through their friends list and know who these people are or say, this kid's been over to my house, this is someone I would invite to their birthday party, something like that, they probably don't need to be out there. When my daughter gets to that age, I will probably say, you know, you're in first grade, you probably need 10 friends on Facebook. So who's the 10 going to be? You got 2 friends at school and you got 8 relatives. I think that's your list. You're not adding other people in. Social status reflected by likes and shares. I think that it's funny. My wife and I have almost the same account. We have the same friends on Facebook. We posted, when she was pregnant, we posted the same picture with the same heading. She had 179 people like it in an hour. I had like 23. The fact is that people I talk to probably aren't on Facebook very much. Most of my friends aren't on there like, oh man, look, a baby, and excited about it. She gets a different sort of response. So if I compare myself to her, or if I start to think poorly about myself because I don't get the response that she gets, or I judge myself on how many likes and shares and things I'm getting through social media, it's going to be tough. We're not all going to be social media superstars or famous on there, and a lot of kids think that they're going to be. That's what their hope or expectation is. So when they're sharing a picture on Instagram, if it doesn't get enough likes, or I don't know what Instagram gets, hearts or whatever. What's on Instagram? What do you get? Likes? Okay. If you don't get enough likes, then they start to wonder, is it because I'm ugly? Nobody likes me, I don't have enough friends, this picture wasn't good enough, what did I do wrong? Why does this girl get lots of likes but I didn't? It's just a crappy way to evaluate yourself all the time. Social media is always available. We touched on it a little bit. Bullying, negative self-image from all of these kind of adding up. You know, if somebody's using multiple platforms, they're not getting the exposure through Facebook and Instagram that they like. People aren't liking their pictures. they're comparing themselves, they begin to have an unhealthy body image because they see someone else who's, there was a Instagram model. Essentially, you can be famous on almost any social media platform now and get paid for it. There was, anybody watch Fire Festival on Netflix? Nobody? It's hard to make references, nobody knows what I'm talking about. A couple years ago, there was a festival that was being organized and advertised on an island down south somewhere, I forget where, around the Bahamas or something. The guy who was putting it together basically stated they were going to have a bunch of superstar pop stars and rappers were going to be there, and they were orienting this thing towards very wealthy young people. So they were bringing in tens of thousands of dollars to set this up, and it essentially was botched. They weren't able to get the people down there, they weren't able to get lodging, they were selling lodging they didn't have available, they didn't have food, they didn't have water for these people. So they brought in hundreds of thousands of dollars for something that they never put on. And one of the ways that the guy advertised it is he went to one of the Kardashian sisters. Or, yeah, I was thinking it's not a Kardashian, it's Kylie Jenner, I think, right?
She's a Kardashian, she's
Yeah,
sister.
but, yeah. So, they paid her like $150,000 for a single tweet that she put onto Twitter that Fire Festival was going to be awesome. Because she has so many followers on Twitter that they knew that when people read this and saw what she was doing, that they would go to Fire Festival's link, look at it, and book that trip. So they're willing to pay $150,000 for a person just because they have a lot of followers. They're popular through social media. So kids are thinking that they can do the same thing. That if they're funny enough, if they're good looking enough, if they're popular enough through this stuff, that they'll be able to get famous. There was an Instagram model who her job essentially is to be attractive on Instagram and to post pictures, who was talking about her daily regimen and how when she's getting ready for a photo, that sometimes she starves herself for 24 to 48 hours, doesn't eat, gets dehydrated so that she makes sure she looks good enough for what this picture is. If your kids are comparing themselves to that and expecting that when they're going out with their iPhone and taking a picture of themselves, they're going to look like a model, it's unrealistic. Common criminal trends. Identity theft. Using social media to assist in identity theft is huge. I frequently speak to people who think, oh, I'm very good about online. My social media stuff is secure. Okay? Anybody who uses Facebook? Has anybody ever done a quiz that says like, we'll tell you which Marvel superhero you're going to be, or we'll tell you which actress would play you in your life if it was a movie. You done that? Okay, a couple people have done it?
Yeah.
Most of the information that you're putting into that when you're answering the quiz is just information mining. There's a good chance that they're taking that and then they're either giving your information away to other people to orient advertising or sales towards you, or it could simply be something where they want to know what's your favorite color, where were you born at, what was your first car, which all tend to be comments or questions that you use for security purposes through your bank account, through other websites, through other password things. My mother on Facebook is my mom and has on there that her relationship status to me is that I'm her son, and her name is her maiden name. So when my bank says mother's maiden name is security, well, it's not very secure because there's hundreds of people online who can just look at my Facebook and know what my mother's maiden name is. There's no reason that a couple dumb questions are going to tell you what Marvel character you're going to be or what actress is going to play you. Most of the time, if you're giving out information, even if it just seems like dumb stuff, you got to wonder why. Why does my favorite color being yellow or the fact that I drive a Honda determine these things? Do I really need to put that stuff out there? Other things to think about is sometimes when you think my page is secure. I stopped a car there was a female driver and 3 other passengers in the vehicle. They were not being very compliant with me. She was not very forthcoming with some information. There was some other criminal stuff going on. They wouldn't tell me their names. They wouldn't give me IDs. I get her ID because she has to give it to me. She's the registered owner of the car. I looked her up on Facebook. She had posted that she was going to go to the Gun Lake Casino and did anybody want to go with her? 3 people had responded to her that they were interested in going. I linked to all 3 of their accounts, which were unsecure. So once I opened them up, they hadn't put their full names. So a lot of times, especially criminal people, put like a street name or a partial name is what they use on Facebook. So I took a partial name from their Facebook page, then I looked for their birthday, but their birthday is secure, it wouldn't show it to me. So I scrolled through their Facebook page until I got to a day where there was a whole bunch of people saying, happy birthday. Now I used their date of birth and the partial name search to locate who they were, and 2 out of the 3 had warrants, so when I went back up to the car, I said, you're under arrest and you're under arrest, and they all said, how did you know who we were? There's a lot of information that's out there, and even when you have some security stuff, other things get out. Pictures of stuff that's on your Facebook page or that you're sharing somewhere can reveal information about you. Obviously, your date of birth. So, you know, I'm not particularly savvy with this stuff, and I'm not trying to steal identities, but it would be pretty easy to get a maiden name, a date of birth, a favorite color, partial to your social security. People put the dumbest stuff on there. There was a post where a girl was posting a picture of how cool her new credit card was because it had a picture on it, so she put a picture of her card on. And of course she's got 100 friends or 1,000 friends, and one of them says, what's the back look like? And so she takes a picture of the back of the card. Okay. For the most part, I would say limit who your friends are on social media. Limit who's seeing your stuff and think, you know, do I really need to be that person's friend? And if you're concerned that they're going to see me down the road and say, why weren't you my friend on Facebook? Oh, my bad. I only want to look at so many things, or I try to keep up with my family, and I unfriended you. Big deal. Subject trends. Just meaning that I can see what people are doing. When they're at home, when they're not going to be at home, when they're going on vacation. You know, people put on there, we're checking in at the hotel in Nashville, Tennessee. I've got a pretty good idea that maybe your house is going to be vacant for a while. The dogs are going to the vet to be boarded because we're headed to Disneyland. Okay. If you want to put that stuff out, if, you know, vacations are big, you can do it when you get back. So you could return from the trip and update everything else. At least if you're going to do stuff like that, let people know somebody's got to watch your house. Otherwise, anybody who's on there can see that you're going to be gone for an extended period of time. There is, I don't remember how to do it right this minute. There's something on Facebook, and maybe one of you guys will know, you can see people that are following you that you might not know. Sometimes it'll be like bot information, so basically it can be like spammed accounts and fake stuff for somebody who's following your Facebook page that you may not know. We got some information about it a while ago, basically as police officers to say, hey, you should check this out once in a while and see if there's anybody who's looking at you that you don't want. If I have time here at the end, I'll Google it real quick, but I gotta keep going through it. Blackmail, so if your child is sharing images, pictures, something that goes out, now someone has nude photos of you or someone else, they're extorting people for that. There is a pretty common issue that we're seeing where typically it is older men that are falling for this. Somebody who's not particularly savvy with the computer. And what happens is, this is an actual case recently. Probably mid-60s, male. He has never had social media. Decided he wanted to get Facebook to keep in touch with his family, so he only has a few friends. He received a friend request from an attractive girl. So he accepted it. When he accepts it, the girl sent him a message fairly quickly and said, "Oh, you're not the John Smith that I thought you were, but you look nice, we can still be friends." So he responds, they chat. The chat only goes on for about 10 minutes before the girl says, "Do you like sex?" He says, "Yeah, I like sex." She said, "Hey, weird, me too, I like sex." Then she says, "Would you like to see my breasts?" He says, "Okay." She says, "Yeah, we gotta go to this other spot. So I can use my camera, just follow this link." He clicks the link, it takes them outside of Facebook to a different site. When they get to the site, there's a video basically, and a girl's exposing her breasts on it. It's definitely not the person that he's actually communicating with. It's probably a pre-recorded video that's been used 100 times like this. The girl sends a message and says, "I would like to see you also." So the guy exposes himself to his web camera. Now, after he's done this, the person sends him a message showing that they had recorded the video that he had just done. They're friends with him on Facebook now because that's where they started this interaction at. They have his friends list, including his wife and his kids. So now they said, either pay us $500 or I'm going to send all this chat information and the video of what you just did to your wife and your kids. He says, "Okay, I'm going to go get $500. He sends them $500. They said, "Thanks, but now we need $1,000. This continues until he had spent $80,000 and he was broke, didn't have any more money. They're still asking him for more money. He said, "I don't have any more money to give you, I can't do anything." So they're going to release the information back to his family. He was actually on his way out to the state game area. He was going to kill himself. And he decided to stop at state police instead and explain what was going on. And realistically, his money's gone. We can't really do anything with it. Most of the time, that's probably somebody who's communicating from outside the country. The Facebook girl is just a spam, a fake account. She claims that she was from Texas. The money, he Western Unioned it got Western Union to Jamaica. So we're not getting the money back and we can't do anything else with it. And ultimately, if they decide that they're gonna share that with somebody, we can't stop that. Typically what I tell people is, especially for men, you know, if an attractive young woman is hitting on you, you gotta think, this is probably a scam. Something's going on. You know, why is this girl talking to me right now? I'm a 65-year-old farmer who's never been on social media, and I have a young girl from Texas that just messaged me, wants to be friends, and expose herself. That's weird. If something is weird or seems suspicious, you probably gotta wonder what's going on. Concealed information in conversations, I've already touched on it. Lots of sites that are designed to keep stuff hidden. People know how to delete their information offline and how to keep that stuff concealed from police. Phishing, so especially since I can represent anybody that I want on social media, I'm sure all of you have probably gotten a friend request from somebody before that you thought, I'm already friends with that person. There's a good chance that when somebody is hacking or is logging in as another, I'm pretending to be Deb. Now I solicit Deb's friends for information, or I use you as being my reputable source to get information from Susan, and then I'm going to steal Susan's identity. So I don't know when my friends would ever need to ask personal information of me through social media. If I got a request like that, I would probably call them and say, why are you asking for this? Or what is it? I would verify it. I don't trust anything online. I don't trust who the person is that's sending me a message or where that information is coming from. Verify the stuff. And even if it turned out to be something reputable and you were going to share information, social media is not the most secure spot to do that. So whatever they're asking for, you know, if you get a bump later from your kid, your 17-year-old says, hey, I need your social security number. I'd probably call them. What do you need my social for? Well, I'm applying to colleges. They're going to run your credit to figure out if we can apply for financial aid or something. Okay. But I wouldn't expect that request to come through Instagram. It would be weird. If it seems weird, verify it. Okay. Control measures. This is why a lot of people I think are in the class, is they want to discuss different options for how to fix certain things. So turn off the Wi-Fi. Chores for time, dinner, bedtime. This works with older kids. So Don, your 15-year-old, if they've already got a smartphone and you're having issues with, they're using it too much, they're on
No,
there.
she lost her smartphone. I mean, I took it away.
Okay.
It's gone.
Lost it for inappropriate behavior, or?
No, she's not allowed to be on it.
I understand. Why did she lose it? Why'd you take it away from her?
It was through the Berry County Family Court was one measure, and she's on probation.
Okay, well,
She's on probation,
that's a pretty good reason to take it away.
and at the house and so forth.
Okay. So, if you are at the point where you kind of want to control how much your child is online or what they're doing, you're having issues with them not completing homework or they're not doing chores and things around the house, something I've seen is where a parent will turn the Wi-Fi off or change the password on Wi-Fi, and then child gets home from school, they won't be able to access that program, and you can say, when your homework is done, you bring completed homework to me, I will give you the password to the Wi-Fi. When the dishes are done or your room is picked up, I'll reactivate the Wi-Fi, whatever it needs to be. Especially if they don't have, if they have cellular plan, then they can still do certain things and download data, but depending on how much control you want, there are options where you could be able to shut off a cellular plan or data on your child's phone also. So you can turn Wi-Fi off and then limit their use. I also would say that this is something, if you want to bring your family together at dinner time, you could shut off certain things and make it unavailable for them to be using phones, no phones at the dinner table, or at bedtime, because unfortunately you're going to find that your child probably is fatigued in the morning because they stay up until 1 a.m. watching videos on their phone. And so, perhaps at 9 o'clock at night, it's time for the Wi-Fi to get shut off and data to get shut off, and they're going to bed. And now they're not going to be able to do that stuff on their phone. They're not going to be able to do anything that's not like a game that's actually installed on the phone. Usernames and passwords. This is definitely, I would start when they're young, but you can easily do it at any point, I think. I would want to know what applications they're using. I would expect that username and password for phone, Facebook, emails, whatever it is, would be available to me. I would probably have them write that out so that I could check it. And I would trust them with a lot of things that they're doing until they prove to me that I shouldn't trust them. So the other thing that I would do with my daughter is I would just be straightforward and say, I'm not going to log into your stuff without telling you what it is. But if I get on your Facebook to see what's going on, this username and password should work. I shouldn't have any issues getting in there. And then if I did log on for some reason, I will tell you about it later. I'm not going to be sneaking through it behind your back unless other issues arise. Choose wisely. Friends, pages, movements. Facebook, obviously, there's a lot of support pages. There is nonprofit organizations. There's a lot of positive stuff that's out there as well. There is, social media is not all negative things. Your kids could be on there and learn a lot of positive things about the world. They can connect with other people that would be beneficial to them. You may have church groups and stuff like that. It's just monitoring what they're doing and talking to them about what page are you following, who are you friends with, why do you like that person, why is this a celebrity that you want to see what's in their Twitter. And something that has worked, it works well for me as a police officer, is I act dumb a lot when I'm talking to somebody about something because they tend to explain more and will talk to you about it. So if I go to Deb's house and she's got a meth lab, I frequently will say, man, meth, what, I guess I never cooked meth before. What is this bottle for? How do you use this? And once they get talking to you, man, they'll explain all kinds of stuff to you. I've learned so much about growing marijuana and cooking meth from people that are going to jail, but they've confessed, and now they will just tell me all kinds of stuff. I've learned that marijuana plants love loud music, like AC/DC, because it simulates thunder, and then it makes them feel like they're outside, so they grow better. It might be true. The guy, he had huge plants. I would talk to a child the same way. So I would talk to my daughter and say, hey, you know, we were learning about social media tonight. They were talking about Twitter. I know that you like Twitter, right, Deb?
Sure.
And so I'm thinking about setting up an account. Who do you think I should follow? And my daughter would say, oh, you should, the Jonas Brothers are great, and Kylie Jenner, and Tony Stark. Okay, why should I follow them? Or who do you like? Why do I like those people? So as this conversation, you get into it, and then your child's going to tell you who they like and why. And so you can start to research that stuff and say, are these people beneficial for her? Or is there reasons we should talk about, hey, you know, I kind of checked into that, I don't know. I got to think of a bad influence now. I'm not very good with actors and actresses. Who's a bad one? Nobody? Justin Bieber. I looked into that Justin Bieber, and he does not seem so great. So, you know, a lot of the stuff that you're doing on Twitter, I like. Those people are good. Do you mind if we get rid of that one? And she'll probably compromise or talk to you about it. And if they have a problem with it, we can work something out. Screen time monitoring. Who's got an iPhone in here? And every week now it tells you how much you look at your screen, right? Yeah. It's kind of awful. I almost don't like being reminded that I look at my phone. So it's easy to see how much your kids are on there. If you're setting a time limit, you know, if your kids are in school, my personal opinion is they shouldn't be on their phone at school at all. No. So if you're not on your phone at school, and then you get home from school or you go to sports, and then we have dinner together while you're not on your phone, and you're sleeping, of course, at least 8 hours a night, right? They shouldn't show an average screen time of 6 hours a day. It's just not available there. They shouldn't be on their screen all night long. A reasonable amount of time to be on one of those devices would be a couple hours a day, max, probably. And that's when they're using the restroom, or they're on the school bus, or at nighttime if there is some time that you're allotting them to use a device or something else. But I would keep an eye on how much they're using it. Make sure we get outside. You can set standards on that stuff and say, you know, I think that this is reasonable between everything else that you're doing, that you've got an hour of screen time. And at the end of the week, if you check it and it shows that they're using an excessive amount, then maybe we need to reevaluate something. Does anybody have any questions on screen time? You guys understand? Okay. Public Wi-Fi, I touched on earlier. Some of it is just, you know, like in Don's case where he's trying to limit someone entirely from having access to something. There is a lot of devices that can still get online if you're on a Wi-Fi somewhere. So I have a Kindle. Is everybody familiar with Kindle? Basically just a reading application. It still gets on the internet. It still downloads all these same applications if I want. So if you go up to the kid's room and take a cell phone away thinking that you've just limited their access to the internet, and you forget that they've got a Kindle or a school iPad or an old phone.
A tablet, Chromebook.
Yeah. If they have an old phone that doesn't have a service plan on it, just because they can't make a phone call doesn't mean that they can't use a free public Wi-Fi or a neighbor's Wi-Fi or your own Wi-Fi to get on somewhere. If you have more than one child, you can activate a wireless hotspot on your phone. So I could turn my wife's phone on as a wireless hotspot, and I can use her phone to use the internet on my phone. So your kids could be working against you to allow somebody to get online. A lot of stuff, I typically feel like education and talking to them and understanding, making sure that they understand the dangers of the stuff that they're doing is your best practices sometimes. If they realize that when they're talking to a person, it could be a stranger or somebody who's trying to harm them or get information from them or something else, they'll be aware of it too. If you just try to eliminate their accessibility to this stuff, you're gonna fail. They get on the bus tomorrow and the kid next to him's got a phone and there's a, let me borrow your phone. And then they're gonna log into their Facebook page and do all the stuff you didn't want them to do anyway. So sometimes the harder you try to stop it, the more likely they are gonna drive to go towards that stuff and you're not gonna be able to monitor it all the time.
Do you talk to children, like middle school age children, about what could happen with posting stuff and?
No, but again, this isn't actually my job.
I didn't know.
Yeah, there's a community service trooper, and so they do stuff like this all the time. And so that's their full-time job, and they get requests for lots of different stuff. So sometimes we teach drug-oriented classes or seatbelt classes and things like that. They'll go to school and teach stuff that's being requested. So I'm sure that they are teaching some social media classes. The CST kind of is specialized in their training and they focus on certain stuff. The one that we had who just retired was very good, and she spent a lot of time with kids and taught more things like this and kind of education to young people. We have a new guy who just took over the role, like actually today was his first day. I don't know what his primary focus will be or where he's going to go.
Is it county specific, or do you?
So it's by the post. So Wayland Post covers Allen County and Berry County. There's one CST for those two. So he obviously gets lots of requests and pulled in different directions, things he can do. But
Sometimes coming from a different authority or like person rather than a parent. And my children are so young, but I do talk to them about it, but I don't know a lot. That's why I'm here to take some of these measures right now.
yeah, it helps. And a lot of times, depending on who you talk to, we're available. You know, if you had a specific issue that you wanted addressed or a kid to be talked to or something like that.
You know, and I was thinking more like a school setting. Like,
And we go to schools when we can. Some of the problem, so drugs is my normal area of expertise. So I get requests a lot to teach drug stuff. The issue that comes up with schools is they have very limited amount of time. They have a whole lot of curriculum that they have to do. They have these snow days that cut into their time. So as an example, one of the schools that was having some drug-related issues came to me and said, we want you to teach everything about drugs to entire middle school. You have 1 hour, and it's 2 days before they get out of school for the year. Okay. There's only so much I can do, and so when I came back to them and said, look, this is going to work a lot better in a smaller setting or a longer period, or to give me some time over the course of a longer period, like once a week for a period, is there a class that I could come in and talk to people and I could address things more directly? And the answer was pretty much no. We can't handle that. And I don't want to lose too much time here, but so one of the things I did in that particular class was kind of to really focus on some of the negative impact of using a variety of different drugs. A year later, I had to go back to the school for another drug-related thing, and we were doing like some polls within this group. And every single kid remembered one specific video that I showed. Out of the whole thing, they said, do you guys remember getting taught about drugs last year? None of them even recognized that I was the person who taught the class. But they all remembered one video. And they said, man, I'll never do crack because I saw that video.
That's a good video.
Yeah. So I guess one thing reached them if they thought, I'm not going to do crack because of that one crackhead video that we saw. But it's tough. Schools are tough. Especially to try and reach out to everyone on a social media topic when a lot of schools are going to respond with, parents should teach that. Phone controls. So I Googled before coming to this, like phone monitoring applications or parental phone controls. There was several, these ones. Spizy, Custodio, and WebWatcher were like the three big advertised links that popped up. all of those, from what I can see, basically state that you could put it on your child's phone. They would not know that it's there. It monitors everything that they do, and it would send the information to you. It would tell you what they're searching, what they're looking at, phone calls that they're making. It can show you text messages, recordings of different things. So in an extreme situation,
So
Don?
it's electronic
it monitors everything on the phone all the time, and they don't know that it's there.
a private detector is what I'm saying.
Sure, yeah. So if you were ever going to give the child, if she gets the phone back, you could install one of those programs on there, and then you would be able to see what's going on and control that.
That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, for an extreme version, it's good.
You know, I got sold this idea that the phone is a really, really wonderful instrument. I can keep track of my kids. I can make sure that if something happens in case of an emergency, they get a hold of me. And on and on and on. But you give them a phone, and then they get on Facebook, they're in more danger than they ever were.
Yeah.
They're out there in outer space. I have no control where they're at.
Well,
And it's almost like it's the very issue of the phone in the first place became the enemy.
the things that you said are really
You
good about a
understand what I'm
phone.
getting
I do.
at?
But the things that you said are really good about a phone are all available on a Jitterbug, a standard flip phone that doesn't have access to the internet, doesn't do any
That's
applications.
what I got.
Yeah.
It works.
And so when my daughter gets to the point where I want to keep track of her, what's going to happen is she's going to have a phone just like that, that's going to have probably 3 phone numbers in it, which is going to be mom, dad, and an emergency grandpa. She's not going to add anything. She's not going to be calling other people, and she's not going to be answering a bunch of phone calls from people that she doesn't know.
And it really gets scary, 911, right?
Yeah, well, hopefully I don't have to program that one for her. Family social media accounts, especially young kids, I think this is a pretty good idea, where instead of being, I have a personal page, my wife has a page, and my 10-year-old daughter has a page, we become the Bachman family on social media. She has access to it, she uses it, she can add her friends into there, our family members are on it, any one of us can log in and post, we can see everything that's going on. Then if she's going to request a friend, add a friend or something, I would be seeing who that is and I can approve it before it goes on. She can't receive any private messages, all of that stuff would be available to me. It wouldn't be an invasion of her privacy. This is as she's growing up, this is the standard on how it goes. Hey, it's primarily going to be your page, Deb, because I don't really use Facebook that much. So she can have at it, but she'll know that I'm on there. Eventually, if she proves that she does a good job, she gets a little bit older, she can have her own page. As she splits off on her old page, yeah, I want a username and password for it, and then I would be a friend with that so that I can at least monitor her page and see things that are being posted on there. But at that point, she would be able to see messages and stuff that I wouldn't see without logging in. But she's going to get there. Eventually, at some point, I'm going to have to let her out of the basement. Text message monitoring. There is some of the phone companies now, you know, if you went in and talked to Sprint or somebody and said, my daughter is at the point where I want to get her a smartphone. I kind of want to have some parental controls on it. What are you offering? I know that like the Galaxy phones have one that will a parental mirror of what the child's phone is. So it wouldn't show you when they're online, when they're doing Google searches or anything, but it does show you all of their incoming text messages and phone calls. It would be paired that way. So they could still use those other apps to have conversations and things you wouldn't see, but it would be a step towards them having their own phone while you could still see incoming messages and calls. And if they're sharing a picture or something, using an actual text app or a phone call. I thought of something when I was talking to Don a minute ago. I'll think of it. Right in time. Any specific questions I have? Anything that we didn't cover that you want to talk about?
Have you ever noticed, and I tried just to make sure that I'm crazy, but, if you're talking to somebody about something, let's say port swings, and you don't use your phone to look up port swings, okay? And the next day, you get all kinds of,
Ads for port swings?
ads for port swings.
Yes.
Is somebody like constantly listening to my phone?
It's not listening, it's stuff that you're doing on your device, so it definitely is cueing in on keywords.
But I mean, if I don't look up port swings on my phone at all, because my brother and I tried this, because he.
It wouldn't have to be on your phone. Did you use social media?
No,
Did you use Amazon?
no, we tried it because he told me about this and I'm like, you are nuts. There's no way that you're going to it, right? And so we tried it,
So how did you look up port swings?
we didn't. We were just talking about it in a car.
Right.
And our phone was in the car, but we did not look up port swings at all.
I think your brother might be messing with you.
No,
Crazy.
no, really, I'm serious. If he's ever talking about anything really serious, he'll like shut his phone off or put it in the trunk or, something
I mean,
like
that sounds pretty paranoid.
And yeah, I know, that's what I thought. I'm not a paranoid person.
I don't believe that the phone or any other device is just capable of eavesdropping on you all the time. I do have an Alexa.
Yeah. And
That's never linked in stuff that I've been searching for. But you reminded me of one thing I did want to discuss. I've been looking for a rowing machine, a Concept 2 rower. So I had searched those on Facebook, going through Facebook Marketplace and things like that. Recently, there's been an ad. It looks very professional. It pops up on Facebook. It says Concept 2 rowers. It says that the web address is rogue-fit.com. Rogue Fitness is like the #1 name in CrossFit equipment and things like that. But their website is roguefitness.com, not Rogue Fit. The picture of the rower that comes up on Facebook is definitely taken from like Concept's page. It says, the ad says that recently they'd gotten 7 used rowers and that they're heavily discounted. They're available for $399, free shipping. They come with some other educational materials and stuff like that. It is a sponsored ad through Facebook. When I link to it, it takes me to another spot. It shows me the rest of the ad. It says, here's a picture of one of the rowers you could be getting. And it's just like a random picture of a rower on somebody's carpet in like an apartment, which definitely seems weird. The price of $399 is cheaper than what they should be. A used rower typically is not going to be under $500. So I'm like, man, this is really cheap. And it has shipping, and it comes with all these other things, so it seems like a really good deal. So initially when I looked at it, I thought, it's a Facebook sponsored ad, which must mean it's valid, right? Because Facebook is saying this is valid. But my police instinct is saying this is a scam all day long. Well, my father last month had his credit card stolen, his credit card information. When he reported it, they had used his credit card to purchase $2,000 worth of Facebook ads. So now, just think about Deb is a criminal mastermind. So she steals credit card information. She creates a Facebook sponsored ad for Concept 2 rowers. She puts on a few generic pictures. She puts the information on there as $399. This ad gets shared all over Facebook by people like me who go, man, this is a good deal. There's only 7 of them. I better jump on it while they're still available, because it says, check to see if they're still available. And when you link, it says, there's only 3 left. Well, there's been 3 left for the last 2 months. So now, you get 100 orders. Let's say 1,000 orders at $399 a piece. So you're getting almost $400,000 in income. You ship 0 rowers. By the time all those people who ordered the rowers figure out that this is fake and complain to Facebook, Facebook has now figured out that that credit card was stolen and the Facebook ads weren't any good anyway, so they pulled the ads. But in the meantime, 1,000 people have sent $400 to your shipping address, which is located out of state or in Jamaica. You pocket $400,000 and I never get my rower. So, like, it's not the same, I didn't just think of the rowers and have them show up. But just because you're seeing something on social media doesn't mean it's valid either. When you get on there, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. So one of the things I've done with this ad is every time it comes up, because it keeps getting shared, and all these people are sharing it with other people. Like, hey, I know Jimmy was looking for a rower, I'm going to share it with him. So every time it comes up, I post on it, this looks like a scam. Has anybody actually bought one? It keeps getting deleted, or that ad goes away and the ad comes back. So it's like the fact that I've flagged it as potentially being a scam. The people are looking at it and saying, oh, let's get rid of that. We don't want people thinking it's a scam, and bring it back up. Whether it's somebody asking for personal information or an ad or something else that's going on out there, if you think it is too good to be true or it seems weird, verify it. And that's not just on social media. If you get a phone call, every single day we get complaints from people who say, the IRS called me.
Oh, yeah.
They said I owed them $5,000, and if I didn't pay them $5,000, I'd be arrested. They told me I needed to pay them an Apple iTunes gift cards. Okay. Why would the IRS want iTunes gift cards? My mother, who's pretty smart, she had a guy who told her that her son was in jail and she needed to go get bond money, and if she hung up the phone that she was going to be arrested too, and the bond money was supposed to be paid in these gift cards, so she was on the phone driving to Walmart. Then the phone got disconnected, so she was worried that she had just like doomed herself to jail, and finally calls me and says, he called and said my son's in jail. Which son, Mom? Well, I guess it must be Lauren, my brother. No one is in jail. You don't pay bond with gift cards. You don't get arrested for a phone hanging up. None of this makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, verify it. Hang up. Call the state police post. Ask. Say, hey, I just got this call. Do I have a warrant for my arrest? Do you want me to bring down some gift cards for you? Any other questions? Yeah.
So I get on Google, like, look up car insurance or something, and I get on Facebook and it's got all this stuff wanting to offer me car insurance. So are you sure Facebook ain't monitoring everything we're doing?
I'm not the most skilled at answering that. He actually might have a better answer on
The
how
ads
that
are
works.
often, a lot of companies use Google to serve the ads, even Facebook does. So, and all that, even Facebook connects with Google. So you search something on Google, Facebook can see your searches. And they can curate their ads based on that. It's not that they're watching, it's they're being given the information.
Amazon is the same way. If you search through Amazon, Amazon then is pushing that information out. So I use Amazon a lot. And the funny thing is, it's not intelligent enough yet to realize that I don't need 10 rowing machines. So if I purchase a rower on Amazon today, I'll receive ads for rowers tomorrow. Like, I'm not going to buy more of them. Give me an ad for fitness clothing related to the rower or something, or a water bottle. I don't know, it doesn't even make sense. But yeah, if you're on there, then that stuff's going to start popping up. Anyone else have anything?
Is that Fortnite maybe?
Yeah, Fortnite.
Okay.
Oh, that's a violent.
What I hear you saying is, you put your money in the bank, you can lock the doors, but it's not really safe until you unplug the computer.
Well, I guess most money is digital nowadays, so it's easy to get your money stolen. Crime is digital. A lot of it's going to be linked through the computer. So a lot of people are going to steal your money by convincing you to do something online, or getting information from you online, or pretending to be you online and accessing your bank.
It's serious out there. It really is serious.
It's serious. It's
I
true.
mean, our kids are constantly under attack. I mean, constantly.
What was your question on Fortnite?
My stepson in Canada, and his dad lets him play with all these multiple people with
Mhm.
Frack. To me, that sounds crazy. I mean, it's like
So,
opening up. all
so
kinds of
Fortnite is obviously, it's a video game. It is a
Yeah.
cartoon video game, so the graphics are not gonna be like hyper realistic like a Battlefield or something like that would be. But the goal is they're killing each other. There's
Right.
basically 100 people that enter into a arena, and we're gonna kill each other. People talking online,
that
usually the hard part about that is he's probably talking to grown men
Yeah.
and 6-year-old kids, and then they say really horrible stuff.
Right.
So you're gonna hear things like the butt rape comment over here. That
Oh,
would
yeah.
definitely be something that would come out on that platform where you would hear that.
Okay, yeah.
Well, I know I work at a daycare and some of the kids, they play imagining fight games. And
boys, they do that.
I put a stop to it a couple times and they still do it. And it's like, well, you play Fortnite at home and, you know, they're just playing Fortnite. It's like, no. We don't do that here.
Right.
You can do that at home, just don't do it here.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks. That's good. Thanks.
Anything else?
Fortnite, you can mute it too. Like, you don't have to listen to.
Yeah, you can turn off the
Yeah.
chat.
The
Yeah.
biggest danger with any online game is the online chat forums.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the part.
Is there any way to put a switch on your Wi-Fi so you just switch it off?
Sure. Yeah, you can just unplug it. Yeah, your Wi-Fi, you've got a router. So you got a box. It's plugged into the wall. It's got a cable, probably like a DSL cable or something that's running into it.
Don't trust the telephone company, put it in.
Yeah, so the cable that's running into the back, you can just unplug that anytime you want. So you can leave the power to the router if you want. Unplug that cable.
It won't disrupt that, I mean, don't plug it then.
Next time you plug it back in, it should reboot. If it didn't, you just actually unplug the power and reboot it. It'll come back up. Most of the time they've got lights on the front. So when you unplug it, it'll probably like be blinking red or orange, and then when you plug it back in, it'll start, green lights will come on, and eventually it'll show you the power of the signal. And then you'd see on your devices, your Wi-Fi would come back on, or your internet would be available.
TV, sometimes the TV doesn't work.
Your TV what?
Like ours is smart.
Yeah.
We need it.
Yeah, so you can get online. Well, now you can get online on your refrigerator. I mean, you can have a fridge that you can get on Facebook on. Yeah.
Changing gears for a second, a good book for adults and teenagers alike to read. Now, it's kind of a personal finance book, but judging your view of what you see on the social media and all that stuff, and not playing the light game. Love Your Life, Not Theirs by Rachel Cruz is one that I would recommend to teenagers and stuff. I mean, she talks about budgeting and, try not to keep up with the Joneses, but the Joneses